The complexity of these challenges took the university research hub in sustainable agriculture and forestry, climate. For over 100 years now, UPLB has nurtured a research culture that enriches instruction and enhances creativity and innovation in its faculty. This has made the university a wellspring of solutions to challenges in food security, ecological integrity, public health, and the environment. The complexity of these challenges took the university's research focus from boosting production into sustainability, the interconnectedness of man and his environment, and equitable development. Through the confluence of strengths in its niches, UPLB became a research hub in sustainable agriculture and forestry, climate change, public health, natural resources and biodiversity conservation, energy development, food and nutrition security, and disaster risk reduction. With its research partners, the university continuously contributes to knowledge and technological development in these various areas. As UPLB moves forward, more of these partnerships will take shape for the attainment of inclusive development. Aside from enriching instruction, its research tradition is aimed at making the university relevant to the life of our people through public service and extension work. This ensures the appropriateness of technologies and knowledge products and enables it to contribute to policy making and governance. Research, instruction, and public service. Each one enables the others to make the university a dynamic powerhouse that contributes to the attainment of inclusive growth and national development. For over 100 years now, UPLB has nurtured a research culture that enriches instruction and enhances creativity and innovation in its faculty. This has made the university a wellspring of solutions to challenges in food security, ecological integrity, public health, and the environment. The complexity of these challenges took the university's research focus from boosting production into sustainability, the interconnectedness of man and his environment, and equitable development. Through the confluence of strengths in its niches, UPLB became a research hub in sustainable agriculture and forestry, climate change, public health, natural resources and biodiversity conservation, energy development, food and nutrition security, and disaster risk reduction. With its research partners, the university continuously contributes to knowledge and technological development in these various areas. As UPLB moves forward, more of these partnerships will take shape for the attainment of inclusive development. Aside from enriching instruction, its research tradition is aimed at making the university relevant to the life of our people through public service and extension work. This ensures the appropriateness of technologies and knowledge products and enables it to contribute to policy making and governance. Research, instruction, and public service. Each one enables the others to make the university a dynamic powerhouse that contributes to the attainment of inclusive growth and national development.
My job is to make college easy.
UPLB feels like home.
The warm and friendly people.
The professors are experts in the field.
The enriching experiences that one gets to enjoy.
Learning here is inexpensive and gives me great value for money.
The diverse and the cosmopolitan nature of the graduate community makes me to learn much more in my classes.
Apart from being a top university, UPLB also enables me to study so close to nature. The environment is intellectually stimulating, and the scenery is refreshing and reinvigorating.
One can easily strike a perfect work-life balance studying in UPLB. Done with the reading for the day? Take a spin around the campus on a bike or hike to the Botanic Gardens, to the gateway to Mckilling, or take in and experience the beauty and excellence of the Filipino cultural performances and expression.
UPLB is found at the foot of Mount Mckilling Forest Reserve, an ASEAN Heritage Park. This is part of the reason why we have a clean and green campus. UPLB and Mount Mckilling, which UPLB administers, showcase our commitment to biodiversity conservation.
UPLB was the school of choice for me and my friends because we knew it is an excellent university for those who seek a career in science and engineering.
UPLB values quality education. Hence, it's actively pursuing quality assurance at both the program and institutional levels. A number of our pioneering and major undergraduate programs have already been certified by the ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance.
We have institutionalized new UPLB graduate programs in niche areas that are designed for interdisciplinary collaboration, not only locally, but also internationally.
In line with its internationalization efforts, UPLB hosts the only Philippine campus of the Nagoya University Asian Satellite Campuses Institute, where I'm currently undertaking my Doctor of Philosophy in International Development degree.
Locally, we've been offering several off-campus graduate programs. We have also established our presence in Panabo City, Davao del Norte in Mindanao, through the UP Professional School for Agriculture and the Environment.
I am here to study agriculture in UPLB because I believe I can learn so much in order to help my country. I think that when I finish my program and leave UPLB, I'll be better equipped to help solve the food security situation in my country.
I am here because UPLB has a very good reputation and offers a course that I'm interested in. I'm taking a PhD in Extension Education, which is also recognized in my country. What I especially like is that the professors are both academically very competent and supportive.
The UPLB programs are relevant because these are based on the realities on the ground and were produced through a carefully thought process, combining theory and practice. We champion a strong disciplinal and interdisciplinary lens in understanding and providing profound solutions to complex societal problems. UPLB is known for a strong research culture that informs instruction and capacity building.
The Philippines and the rest of the world is facing complex challenges in food security, biodiversity loss, climate change, public health, and environmental degradation. We in UPLB are always in our toes so that we can prepare and provide the necessary solutions to these challenges by way of our curricular programs.
So what are you waiting for? Look up UPLB's 28 undergraduate degree programs or its over 100 graduate degree programs at uplb.edu.ph. File an application for admission and experience what it's like to study in UPLB.
Ito next ko na rin siya na
Legend tells of a mysterious and beautiful goddess who dwells within the forest of Mount Mckilling. Known as Maria Mckilling, she supposedly guards the mountain and the forests. Myths depict her as a benevolent nature spirit, gifting communities with nature's bounty. While the reality of Maria Mckilling's existence has never been proven, Mount Mckilling itself, its majestic beauty, and the rich bounty of resources and environmental services that it has provided is real. First established as a protected area in 1910, the Mount Mckilling Forest Reserve has been under the care of UPLB since 1960. It covers an area of over 4,000 hectares and was declared an ASEAN Heritage Park in 2013. Mount Mckilling boasts of an impressive diversity of flora and fauna, endemic, native, and introduced. Mount Mckilling functions as both laboratory for forestry students and a tree nursery as UPLB leads efforts to study and preserve endangered tree species. It is a popular ecotourism destination that helps promote appreciation for nature and the need to preserve it. Popular sites in Mount Mckilling include the Mckilling Botanic Garden with its rich collection of tropical plants, the sulfuric mud springs, Pictou, and flat rocks. Aside from taking up the role of steward, UPLB has kept Maria Mckilling alive by making her a part of the community's culture and arts. Stories of the forest goddess are a popular theme for the many cultural activities that take place in UPLB, such as theater productions, folk dance presentations, and art exhibits. The richness of culture and the arts in the university is expressed through many different art forms. These varying art forms serve as a reflection of the rich tapestry of culture and traditions of UPLB. Regardless of whether it is the mountain or the maiden, Mount Mckilling has always been the stalwart and benevolent guardian and icon of UPLB. Throughout UPLB's long history, Mount Mckilling has sheltered the community, served as a source of inspiration and wonder as UPLB continues its pursuit to preserve the environment, celebrate Filipino culture, and contribute to the country's growth and prosperity. National organizations Throughout UPLB's more than 100 years of existence, it has worked in partnership with local and international organizations and institutions in the pursuit of excellence in instruction, research, and public service. Strong partnerships began when the then UP College of Agriculture and the College of Forestry, the first two colleges, established a food security program and became the home of the International Rice Research Institute. It was a partnership with Cornell University in the United States that made an indelible mark in the two colleges' development and history.
The UPCA Cornell contract and the UP Cornell Graduate Education Program strengthened the critical mass of professional staff in UPLB. This graduate program was responsible for producing about 56 PhDs. UP became famous in Southeast Asia. And staff development was so strong until we became UPLB, with many colleges that started as huge departments of the College of Agriculture.
As UPLB nurtured its traditional areas of strength, it unleashed its potentials in allied areas, growth points, and emerging fields, giving way to more partnerships and collaborations.
UPLB envisions itself to be a globally competitive graduate and research university contributing to national development. As the national university whose niche programs are agriculture, forestry, environmental science, and veterinary medicine, UPLB is tasked to capacitate state universities and colleges.
With integration becoming an urgent concern in the higher education arena, UPLB further intensified partnership building to enable it to collaborate in research and instruction, exchange materials, and enhance the mobility of faculty members and students. It now maintains partnerships with a significant number of regional and international educational institutions.
UPLB can provide international linkages through its partners, through collaborations in research and academic programs, through student exchange programs, as well as complementation of its resources, including physical and human resources. We welcome partnerships in our niche programs from universities and institutions in the ASEAN region, as well as other countries around the world.
As the higher education landscape shifts with time, UPLB will keep up by continually developing human resources, revitalizing programs for relevance, and promoting internationalization. In this highly globalized higher education arena, forming and nurturing partnerships for institutional dynamism and development is the way forward. Innovation, history, a center of knowledge, innovation, history, culture, and biodiversity. This is the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. UPLB found its home at the foot of the legendary Mount Mckilling in Los Baños, Laguna, a short distance from Laguna de Bay, the country's largest lake. It has its beginnings in 1909 as the UP College of Agriculture, a tent school for a handful of students. A year after, the Forest School, or what was to become the College of Forestry, also set up its home in Los Baños. In 1972, the UP College of Agriculture and the College of Forestry, that had by then become renowned institutions, were granted full autonomy as the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Instruction, research, and extension in agriculture and forestry in the country took root and flourished in UPLB. Through its strength in these two fields, UPLB established niches in various areas: biotechnology, engineering, veterinary medicine, natural resources conservation, environmental science and management, human ecology, food science, economics and management, public affairs, and development communication. It drew its strength in the arts and other fields of science, from harnessing its expertise and human resource in the biological, physical, and social sciences. Today, UPLB degree programs continue to dominate over its counterparts. Over the years, UPLB has developed graduate programs that continue to attract students far and wide, including collaborative programs with international universities in food security, biodiversity conservation, and development. To make graduate programs more accessible to professionals, UPLB offers them off-campus. Recently, UPLB established the UP Professional School for Agriculture and the Environment in Mindanao, the country's food basket, in order to help build the knowledge capital that the country needs to attain food security. Instruction in UPLB is enhanced by a strong and vigorous engagement in research and public service that enables it to produce knowledge and generate technologies and innovations that promote sustainable living, making it a strong force in the war against hunger and poverty in the country. Extension and public service are the mechanisms by which UPLB brings this knowledge and technologies to the people, as well as for it to know what they need and to help shape policies in the country. UPLB's reputation as a graduate and research university was formed through the continuous aspiration for excellence and the mutual reinforcement between instruction, research, and public service and extension. It brings in partnerships with local and international universities and provides mobility to faculty members, researchers and scientists, and students, and enhances their competitiveness. Instruction, research, and extension and public service in UPLB reflect the dynamism, honor, and excellence that its forebears set as a standard for its leaders to aspire for. This and an enabling environment for creativity and innovation among its people make UPLB a globally competitive research and graduate university that contributes to national development.
Okay po, sige. So we will start. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I think we are already 51 here on Zoom and I think a lot more are actually coming. No? So punong-puno na yung waiting room. And we're also looking at our YouTube live. So we are also live on YouTube already. So to those who are watching on YouTube, we would like to say hello to all of you who are watching on YouTube. So we're very excited this afternoon for our SDS 200 undergraduate thesis workshop, and we will begin exactly by 4 p.m. And of course, we are so excited and honored because this afternoon, our workshop is done in partnership with Palawan State University, and we are honored to have them here. Mamaya they will be speaking. So before we begin, we would like to hear where are our audience from. Can you type it on chat? So those who are on YouTube, maybe you can type your institution and the place where you're from so that we can properly acknowledge you. And of course, we have Pam here who is recording everything so that we can all greet our colleagues from the universities and yung ating mga practitioners who also express their interest. We got a lot of email actually also from practitioners who are saying that they're very interested. We have from Cavite State University, thank you very much. From San Pedro College of Public Administration here in Laguna. From Mindoro State University, from Western Philippines University in Puerto Princesa. Hello po sa mga taga-WPU. We have from Palawan State University main campus. And of course, si Ma'am Pam from the Development Communication program from the College of DevCom in UPLB. Full pack ang San Pedro College of Business Administration. They're all here. Thank you, Sir Mon, who is here. We also have different partners coming from UPLB, of course, from the College of Human Ecology, we have here, no? And of course, check natin ngayon yung nandun sa YouTube. Sino ba yung mga kasama natin ngayon sa YouTube? To those who are on YouTube, feel free to comment where you're from so that we can recognize you. No, so from Palawan State University, aba full pack ang Palawan State on YouTube. They're all there on YouTube, no? Ngayon who are watching from PSU. So you can watch either on Zoom or you can watch on YouTube. And of course, the recording of this webinar will be available on YouTube. And of course, a different campus, we have the Western Philippines University, the main campus in Aborlan. And of course, we have also from Western Philippines University in Puerto Princesa. So just please let us know where you're from and from which country you're from. I'm also seeing some of our foreign friends who are here right now. Please let us know your institution and your organization. Of course, our alumnus is here, Sir Chris Ubak from PNP. Nice to see you, sir. No, so we have a lot of our colleagues who are here. No, so again, full pack ang San Pedro College of Business Administration, of course, Palawan State University, Brooks Point, and Batarasa. Full pack din ang ating Palawan State University colleagues. They're all here. We're now 71 on Zoom, no? So we will recognize you more later on, no, as our colleagues are entering, and I think our waiting room is getting full pack. And to formally begin our program, no, for this afternoon, may I call on our chair of the Department of Social Development Services, Dr. Dino B. Hejes, to start our program formally. Dr. Dino.
Hi, Sir Ron. Good afternoon, everyone. Magandang hapon po sa lahat. And of course, thank you very much to all our attendees, our participants for this afternoon's fourth part of the SDS 200 undergraduate thesis workshop series. I would say that as we move forward conducting this thesis workshop, it became more inclusive, because when we started it, we are just thinking of our SDS 200 students. So in fact, kung magre-review tayo doon sa ating mga journey, no, quick review, we've started with part 1 of finding the one, no, understanding and choosing your undergraduate thesis topic. Our workshop series 2 talked about refining your research objectives, and just last month, we invited Prof. Gcon, no, to talk about review of related literature. Our topic this afternoon has something to do with your research methodology, and I'm very grateful to have this webinar this afternoon, because this is a collaborative effort between the Department of Social Development Services of the College of Human Ecology here in UPLB and the Palawan State University to share their experiences and expertise, no, regarding developing frameworks that capture socio-ecological complexity. So hindi ko na po pahabain. I hope you are all safe and well this afternoon. So magandang hapon po muli, and looking forward to have a meaningful discussion po. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc Dino. No? So thank you, Doc Dino, our very supportive chair, for allowing a lot of these very creative ideas and creative workshops to actually happen. I just greet a little bit some more, no? From Civica Asian Development Academies, we also have practitioners. We have urban planners who are also here. Thank you to our practitioners who are doing urban planning. We also have the UP Professional School of Agriculture and Environment, all the way from Mindanao. No, they're also here. So thank you very much, Doc Dino. And now we move on to the overview of our program for this afternoon. May I call on Assistant Professor Marife B. Dapito to introduce our speakers for this exciting afternoon. Prof. Mape, please.
Thank you, Sir Ron. For this afternoon session, our first speaker is Professor Maria Melinda T. Mendoza. She will discuss the introduction to systems thinking. Professor Mendoza is an associate professor at the Department of Social Development Services, College of Human Ecology, or DSDS here in UPLB. Our next set of speakers are part of the World Bank and University of Queensland funded project from Palawan State University, who developed Sesame. They are Professor Marisa Pontillas, full professor and former OIC president of Palawan State University, from the College of Teacher Education. Her background is in statistics. We also have Professor Eva Marie Ponce de Leon from the College of Business and Accountancy, where she is Associate Professor. Her background is in commerce. We also have with them Ms. Maria Janina Concepcion Decano from the College of Teacher Education, and her background is in communication arts. Of course, for the session on creating causal loop diagram using Vancine, we have Dr. Jennifer Marie S. Amparo. She is a human ecologist with DS and PhD in human ecology. She is currently an associate professor from DSDS Chet. And to synthesize our talks for this afternoon, it is an honor for us to have with us also Dr. Michael Pido, a mentor for many of us in the Philippines who are doing social ecological research. He is a full professor and Dean of Palawan State University Graduate School. And I know you are all excited to start our program rolling. May I now call on Professor Maria Emelinda T. Mendoza for the first talk. Take it away, Ma'am Emmy.
Thank you, Ma'am Afe. Okay, so delivering this message from the UPLB campus. So good afternoon to everybody. Okay, so I hope my screen is in order. Po ba? Nakikita po?
Yes po.
Okay, thank you, Sir Ron. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you this afternoon is not really new to many of our students, and it's really just meant to introduce the presentation of our two next main resource persons in the person of the team of Prof. Maris and also our very own Dr. Jenna Amparo, who will provide the depth and the breadth to the topic of socio-ecological systems complexity. My presentation will follow this flow, and it will include a short introduction on thinking systems thinking. What is a system? A review of what a socio-ecological system is, what is systems thinking, therefore, and under that would be the fundamentals of systems thinking and some components of systems mapping and diagramming. Let me start with a quote from Dana Zohar from her book entitled Rewiring the Corporate Brain Using the New Science to Rethink How We Structure and Lead Organizations, where she introduced the concept of spiritual intelligence and discussed it in the context of leadership in organizations. And I quote, "Most transformation programs satisfy themselves with shifting from the same old furniture about it in the same old room. Some seek to throw some of the furniture away, but real transformation requires that we redesign the room itself, perhaps even blow up the old room. It requires that we change the thinking behind our thinking." So why systems thinking? Okay. Basically, we live in a very complex world. The world is complex, relationships are complicated, organizational life is complex, and we are all part of organizations, so that makes our lives complicated. And many human ecosystems and socio-ecological systems we are navigating in our research and in our thesis are complex. So we use ST or systems thinking to make sense of complex phenomena or complex realities. And to move forward, we have to make sense of these complexities so that we can examine and pinpoint problems, issues, and flashpoints which need addressing. And then thinking in terms of systems is useful in analyzing where those problems are coming from, such as what the contributory factors are and the character of the interactions between and among these factors. Then we can think and discuss about pursuing solutions and appropriate actions, knowledge-based solutions and actions toward meaningful transformation in our target socio-ecological systems. What is a system? I would like to share with you this very short YouTube video. So Ron, can I ask help from the team? Ron?
There were 6 blind.
Ma'am, ito po. We'll be sharing po the YouTube video of Prof. Emmy.
Okay, stop share muna ako, sir, nung aking
Yes,
ano.
Sige po, ma'am. Are you seeing the screen na po, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
There were 6 blind men who grew up in a village in India, and the community kept them safe and shared with them many stories. The men were curious about many of the stories they heard, but they were most curious about elephants. Based on the stories that each of them had heard, they argued about what elephants must be like. The community grew tired of these arguments and arranged for the men to visit the palace, where they were greeted by an old friend from their village who worked as a gardener on the palace grounds. Their friend led them to the courtyard. There stood an elephant. The blind men stepped forward to touch the creature that was the subject of so many arguments. The first blind man reached out and touched the side of the huge animal. An elephant is smooth and solid like a wall, he declared. It must be very powerful. The second blind man put his hand on the elephant's limber trunk. An elephant is like a giant snake, he announced. The third blind man felt the elephant's pointed tusk. I was right, he decided. This creature is as sharp and deadly as a spear. The fourth blind man touched one of the elephant's 4 legs. What we have here, he said, is an extremely large cow. The fifth blind man felt the elephant's giant ear. I believe an elephant is like a huge fan, or maybe a magic carpet that can fly over mountains and treetops, he said. The sixth blind man gave a tug on the elephant's coarse tail. Why, this is nothing more than a piece of old rope. Dangerous indeed, he scoffed. The gardener led his friends to the shade of a tree. Sit here and rest for the long journey home, he said. I will bring you some water to drink. While they waited, the 6 blind men talked about the elephant. An elephant is like a wall, said the first blind man. Surely we can finally agree on that. A wall? An elephant is a giant snake, answered the second blind man. It's a spear, I tell you, insisted the third blind man. I'm certain it's a giant cow, said the fourth blind man. Magic carpet, there's no doubt, said the fifth blind man. Don't you see, pleaded the sixth blind man. Someone used a rope to trick us. Their argument continued, and their shouts grew louder and louder. Wall! Snake! Spear! Cow! Carpet! Rope! Stop shouting, called a very angry voice. It was the Raja, awakened from his nap by the noisy argument. How can each of you be so certain you are right? Asked the ruler. The 6 blind men considered the question, and then, knowing the Raja to be a very wise man, they decided to say nothing at all. The elephant is a very large animal, said the Raja kindly. Each man touched only one part. Perhaps if you put the parts together, you will see the truth. Now, let me finish my nap in peace.
Thank you, sir. Thank you po. Okay. Let me go back to my slides.
Okay, so what are our takeaways from the story of the elephant and the blind man? At the most basic, the elephant is a system, no? And a system has structure and has a function. A system is an entity made up of parts or elements which are interconnected, and these parts and their interconnectedness account for the structure of the system. Also, a system behaves in a particular way, and this is what we usually refer to as its function. And it is significant to note that the function of the system is not just addition of the functions of its parts. No? So, quote here, a quote that has been attributed to Aristotle, but most system thinkers would be familiar with this, and I quote that the whole is greater than the sum of its part, and that basically is what we hope to achieve, an appreciation of that we hope to achieve when we're doing systems thinking. So how do we know when we're looking at a system? Okay, so these are the questions that we can reflect on when we're looking at a problem space and think if it's a system. So can we identify the parts? Do the parts affect each other? Do the parts together produce an effect that is different from the effect of each part on its own? And does the effect or the behavior over time persist in a variety of circumstances? So I got this from Meadows, who did a very good work on systems thinking as applied to management. Okay, so basically what she was saying is that a system is a set of interrelated components that work together in a particular environment to perform whatever functions are required to achieve the system's objective. So corollary to this, what would be a socio-ecological system? Okay, largely as a result of the separation of ecological and social sciences in resource management issues, for example, in fisheries or in forestry, natural and human systems have usually been considered as two separate entities. Now, under this separation, natural systems form the template within which human systems operated. And human systems are seen as the drivers and recipients of change from the natural system. And this has been the idea forwarded by the Chicago School of Sociologists. But about 20 years ago, this view began to shift towards a concept of a fully coupled and interacting socio-ecological system. And this concept now recognizes the social and the human and the ecological or the biophysical subsystems as two equally important systems, which function as a coupled human ecological or socio-ecological system. So this is where human actions affect biophysical systems, and biophysical factors affect human well-being, and humans in turn respond to these factors. Okay, so what then is systems thinking? Okay, to just put a shortcut to that, okay, there is this Sufi teaching story that says, you think that because you understand one, that you must therefore understand two, because one and one makes two. But you forget that you must also understand the end. So one and one. So systems thinking is really focusing not just on the variables, but also that line of interaction or that interconnectedness that connects one and one to make it two. Okay, so systems thinking requires a shift in mindset from linear to circular. And the fundamental principle of this shift is that everything is interconnected. Essentially, everything is reliant upon something else for survival. Human needs food, Human needs air and water to sustain our bodies, and trees would need carbon dioxide and sunlight to thrive. Even inanimate objects are reliant on other things. A chair, for instance, a wooden chair, would need a tree to grow to provide its wood. And a cellular phone needs electricity to power it. So when we say in human ecology that everything is interconnected, from a systems thinking perspective, we are actually defining a fundamental principle of life. So from this, we can shift the way we see the world from a linear, structured, mechanical worldview to a dynamic, perhaps chaotic at the onset, interconnected array of relationships and feedback loops. And a systems thinker uses this mindset to untangle and work within the complexity of life in our world. So in general, second is synthesis. So first is interconnectedness, second is synthesis. And in general, this refers to the combining of two or more things to create something new. When it comes to systems thinking, the goal is synthesis as opposed to analysis, which is the dissection of complexity into manageable components. Analysis fits into the mechanical and reductionist worldview where the world is broken down into parts, but all systems are actually dynamic and often complex. Therefore, we need a more holistic approach to understand phenomena that we are looking at. So synthesis is about understanding the whole and the parts at the same time, along with the relationships and the connections that make up the dynamic of the whole. So essentially, synthesis is the ability to see the interconnectedness and to shift back and forth from the micro to the macro relationships. Third is emergence. And from a systems perspective, we know that the larger things emerge from smaller parts. Emergence is a natural outcome of things coming together. And in the most abstract sense, emergence describes the universal concept of how life really emerged from individual biological elements in very diverse and unique ways. So emergence is the outcome of the synergies of the parts of a system, and it's about non-linearity, and self-organization, and we often use the term emergence to describe the outcome of things interacting together. The fourth is the concept of feedback loops. Since everything is interconnected, there are constant feedback loops and flows between elements of a system, and we can understand, we can observe and intervene in feedback loops once we understand their types and their dynamics. We will know more of this later as we go to the talk of Prof. Maris and Ma'am Jen. Fifth is causality. And understanding feedback loops is really about gaining perspective of cause and effect, how one thing results in another in a dynamic and constant evolving. Again, we'll know about this a little bit later. And lastly is really the concept of systems mapping. And this is one of the key tools of the systems thinker. There are many ways to map, actually, and the analog cluster mapping to complex digital feedback analysis. So, however, the fundamental principles and practices of systems mapping are universal, whether we're talking about the iceberg model or we're doing CLD. The principles are basically the same. So what is systems thinking, and how do we operationalize or apply systems thinking in our research and activities? So initially, of course, you have to zoom in a particular community, a particular organization, a particular institution, a particular socio-ecological system, or a particular problem space, and you navigate the complexities of that space through a mental mapping exercise or through discursive mapping, like the collaborative conceptual model that the Australian school have really pushed for. And basically ask the following questions, because these are what you want to identify within a socio-ecological system for you to do your synthesis and your analysis. So what are the resources? Okay. What are the activities therein? So who are moving and who are the actors? What is the state of each resource and each activity? What are the trends that you can observe out of the activity and the resources? Are there past trends that you can identify? What are the expected or future trends if things go as they are? And what would be the desired future trends that we want, and therefore we may need to come up with decision points to come up or to arrive at the desired trends. And then the concept of pressures. Pressures are things or occurrences, whether they are objects or activities that impinge upon any of the variable, meaning the resources and the activities. And finally, how do each of the resources, activities, and pressure interact? So this is the meat of systems thinking, the interaction between and among the different variables. And lastly, what decisions, referring to the users or the actors within the problem space, what decisions can be incorporated in your mental map. Okay, so to sum it up, as we listen eventually to our main presenters, what is systems thinking? Okay, it's really a way of perceiving that systems are constantly changing, that systems can be defined by boundaries, and system parts are dynamically interconnected, and that systems can be explored through stocks and flows. So with that, I end my introduction to our, and I'm excited to go to our Sesame and our Vensim and cases from Jen and Prof. Maris. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Emmy. What an insightful presentation on systems thinking. So we are so excited to really go into this presentation on systems thinking, and I think it's a good review before we go into the specific tools and specific models that we can actually use. Now let us call on our colleagues from Palawan State University. So what they will be presenting is actually a product of their project with the World Bank and the University of Queensland. We have Prof. Marisa Pontillas, Professor Eva Marie Ponce de Leon, and Prof. Janina Decano. So I will be playing their presentation on Sesame.
Good afternoon, everyone. We thank the UPLB's College of Human Ecology for inviting us to present Sesame as a tool for systems thinking in today's webinar. The Sesame is a knowledge tool developed by Dr. Carl Smith and Dr. Russell Richards under the Capturing Coral Reefs and Related Ecosystem Services project, funded by the World Bank and the University of Queensland. It ran from 2014 to 2018 in 2 project sites, El Nido in the Philippines and Selayar in Indonesia. The Palawan State University is a collaborating research partner in SEQUEST, particularly in the systems analysis component where 3 tools were developed: Sesame, Systems Simulation Model, and Systory, which can all be found in the SEQUEST website. For this seminar, we shall focus on Sesame, which is an acronym for Socio-Ecological System App for Mental Model Elicitation. It is an app that is used in conjunction with a focus group discussion to elicit participants' understanding of the factors and interactions that cause socio-ecological problems, or what we call wicked problems, in their community. We invite you to view the introductory video on Sesame.
Hi, I'm Carl Smith, and I'm one of the Seacrest researchers who developed the app Sesame. Sesame is used to assist group discussions about coastal zone management problems, such as fish catch decline, and to visually represent how resources, activities, and pressures interact to create the problems identified. This video introduces you to Sesame.
Sesame is available across multiple platforms. Download it from your App Store or via the Seacrest website, then open it up. Start a Sesame project by tapping on the plus icon and fill in the details for your project. Now create a project template by tapping on the new folder you just created and then on Project Template. The default categories and icons in Sesame are resources, activities, pressures, and decisions. You can edit these or add your own. The next step is to create a causal loop diagram. In your project folder, tap on the plus icon and enter the details. Then tap on the causal loop diagram folder that you just created, where a map and category icons will appear. Use search to identify a location on the map. You can also turn features on and off by tapping on the eye icon and then turning a feature you want on or off. Drag and drop category icons onto the screen. You can resize icons by tapping on them and dragging the highlighted corner in and out. Or delete them by tapping on them, then tapping the trash can icon. Tap the arrow icon to add cause and effect relationships between icons. Drag the arrow from one icon to another to represent a cause and effect relationship. Adjust the shape of the arrow by dragging the handles at either end. Set the arrow's polarity by tapping on the circle in the middle of the arrow. Your causal loop diagram will automatically save as you build it. If you construct more than one causal loop diagram within a project, you can analyze them by using the diagnostics function in Sesame. Go to your project folder and long press on the causal loop diagrams you want to analyze. Then tap on the diagnostics icon. The Diagnostics Interface will give you summary statistics for elements within your causal loop diagrams, such as the number of diagrams in which a fish icon appears. It also shows the interactions between these elements, such as the number of diagrams in which coral affects fish. Tap on the bar of an element for more information. Finally, you can export and share your Sesame project. Long press on a project folder and tap on the export icon and save it as a file. To import a Sesame project, go to Projects, tap the import icon, and find the Sesame project that you want to import. For instructions on how to use Sesame within a focus group, visit the Seacrest website and download the Using the Sesame app, scripts for guiding focus group discussions.
Thanks for watching our introduction to Sesame. You can find more information in the video notes, and you can download the scripts for guiding focus group discussions on the Seacrest website. I hope you find Sesame to be a useful tool.
The app is accompanied by a set of scripts which outlines the processes to be followed in an FGD. But for the purposes of this presentation, we shall only demonstrate to you the first script, which is Sesame map development. There are two other scripts for map update and the map review.
Okay, thank you, Mamaris. Okay, so once you've downloaded and installed and opened the Sesame app on your computers or on your
tablets, you would see this as its interface. So the Sesame will capture information such as resources, activities, pressures, as well as its past trends and conditions. Okay, so these would be coming from the local communities and would help them visualize these components. So this is a very useful tool during focus group discussions, and ideally you already have a problem or an issue that you want to focus on when you go to a certain community. Okay, so it's very simple. The design of the app is very simple in the sense that it's intuitive. Like you can simply follow the buttons that are available. You have to fill out everything or else you would not be able to move forward. So you're going to create your project folder, then create your project template, or this would be your rich picture or diagram. Okay, so if you click on the project template as well, you would be able to see, add, or remove categories and or icons to your diagram. So there are default categories: resources, activities, pressures, decisions. Aside from that, you can also add categories that would be specific for what you are doing. And under each, you can add your own icons for each category. Okay, now let us switch to the app itself so that you can follow and even try adding all these components or icons into the map. Okay, now that we're on the map, as you can see, I've already focused it on El Nido, which is our project site for the problem of fish catch decline. Okay, so there are various icons that you could see on the screen. So, and this would all help you in creating the diagram. So the categories are all located on the bar below. So we have the resources, activities, pressures, decisions, among others. We also have this arrow, which are for the interactions. And then we have this eye icon, which tells us when, or rather the elements that we can turn on and or turn off in the map. Okay, so as I've mentioned a while ago, we usually start by showing this map to the participants and asking them if the problem of fish catch decline is present in their locality or community. When they say that it is, we then ask them to identify the activities that that influence the problem. So naturally, they would say that fishing influences the problem of fish catch decline. And then they might also mention tourism, because this is El Nido. They can measure a lot of other activities, but make sure that it is all related to the problem of fish catch decline. Okay, once they've exhausted all these activities, we then ask them what are the resources that are affected by these activities. So it could be the seagrass. Then of course since we have the fishing, there's probably fish, and then corals. We could also add, what else? We could add the mangroves and then the beach, because that's the one that's primarily affected by tourism. So you just have to slide through the icons until you find it. Okay, now once we've established the activities and the resources, we then ask our participants the state or condition of these resources. Okay, so there are several states or conditions. We have 4 that they can assign: green for good, orange for moderate, red for poor, and gray for unknown. So they'd say, like, let's say the fish is in moderate condition. Coral is also moderate. Seagrass is green. Mangrove is green. And then the beach is also green. Again, these are things that I'm assigning but are based on the responses of the participants. Okay, next up, we go to the trends. Mamaris, can you please explain the trends?
We shall now add activity and resource trends in our map. For each activity, the facilitator shall ask participants to describe the trend during the past 5 years. There are many choices for the graphs that can represent the past trend, as you can see in the bottom part of the screen. We suggest that this be drawn on a bigger paper to facilitate use. We first ask whether the trend is increasing, decreasing, or constant. If they say it is increasing, it is best if we can probe further and ask them to specify what type of increase has been observed in the past. But if there is some difficulty, then we can just use the first three graphs to represent the trend. So like for fish, they might say that the fish abundance has been decreasing during the past 5 years. So we would put that graph there. And then Janina will show, we'll just drag and drop icons just to show the possible trends as can be generated from the responses of our participants. So we just make sure that each of our resources would have the past trend. What they have observed with regard to the abundance of the resource. The next trend that we shall ask is about the expected future trend.
Okay, if you noticed, I turned this on a while ago. I clicked the wheel because you have to make sure that the position is locked, or else your map might move.
So after the past trend, we shall then ask our participants what is the expected trend within the next 5 years, given what we have observed during the past 5 years. So the same graphs can be used, but this time the color is in purple as a code for the expected future trend. So again, we would choose the icons based on what our participants would tell us. The third and the last trend is that of the desired future trend. So this is still about what they for the next 5 years, but this time we ask our participants to what they would want to happen in the next 5 years. That is, if they have a choice, what would they want to see their fisheries, for example? So based on their answers, we drop and drag icons. Take note that the color now is still blue to indicate that it depicts or stands for the desired future trend. So after we have done the trends, for each of our resources, there should be 3 graphs representing the past trend, expected future trend, and the desired future trend. After we are done with the resources, we do the same thing for our activities.
Oh, you could turn on the resources so that it's just the activities that you see.
Okay.
For
so
the
similar,
I would just be adding the trends.
Yeah, this is similar, the same question, but this time we would say, what did you notice about fishing? What trends in the past 5 years did you observe? Is it increasing, decreasing? Okay, and then the expected future trend and the desired future trend. Okay, so let's say that if we are done with all the activities, this would be how our graph would look like now. If we are conducting using the Sesame for participatory resource assessment, we would usually stop at this point, since now we all have our resources, activities, state, past, present, and desired future trends. But since we are doing systems thinking, we would now add another component to our map, and this would be introduced by Ma'am Eva.
So the next step is to identify pressures that influence past trends in activities and resources. So pressures can be defined as external or local factors that drive certain events or developments in a location or situation. So to map pressures, we ask our participants to identify any pressure that might have influenced past trends in activities first, elicit all the responses from our participants, and repeat the same procedure for pressures affecting resources. In exploring fish catch decline as a socio-ecological problem, some of the responses we received from our focus group discussion participants were population growth, destruction and illegal fishing practices, and prices of fish. So similar to what we did earlier, we will also let our participants determine the past, expected, and future trends for each pressure that we identified. So as participants identify the trends that best match the past, expected, and desired future trends in a pressure, our iPad driver or Sesame operator places the corresponding icons alongside pressures as what Janina is already doing on screen. We repeat this process for all pressures identified. So after identifying the activities, resources, pressures, and their trends, we will proceed to the more interesting part of determining interactions between or among the variables and assigning the corresponding polarities for each interactions. Mamaris?
Okay, before that, I will just be turning off the trends so that our map would look cleaner.
The first interaction that we would look at is from one resource to another resource. We ask the question, does the amount or condition of one resource influence the amount or condition of another resource? For example, does the condition of our coral affect the abundance of our fish? If they say yes, and in what way? They would say that there is a positive relationship. The better the corals are, the more fish that we have, then we would indicate that by a plus sign. And we will also ask, what about from fish to coral? They might say there's none, okay? So we'll just leave it as is. And then next is other resource, let's say from mangrove to seagrass, mangrove to fish. Janina is showing us how we would use the arrows to indicate how one resource is related to another resource. Of course, this is on the assumption that these are elicited from our participants. And let's say there's a positive interaction.
Also, please note that you could add the interactions by clicking the arrow here at the bottom left. Okay, and there would be a green bar under it, meaning you can already create these arrows.
So it's okay if they would give interactions that are not backed by science, or if they say there is no interaction, even we know from science that there is, because we are eliciting our participants' mental models. Like sometimes they would say that there is a negative relationship between seagrass and beach, that if there are more seagrasses, then the beach would be dirty and it would deteriorate. So we just accept it and reflect it in our map. There will be an opportunity later to correct these misconceptions or provide more interactions backed by science once we have analyzed the map and go back for another FGD. After we are done with the resource-to-resource interactions, we repeat the process, but this time for the activity-to-resource interactions. So now we focus on the activity. We ask our participants, what resource is affected by fishing? Logically, they would say that it's fish. The more fishing that happens, the less fish there would be, the less abundant would our fishes be. So that is more fishing, less fish. So that's a negative relationship. And on the other hand, from resource to activity, fish to fishing, the more fishes we have, then the more fishing there would be. Okay. So Janina would also indicate other possible interactions for tourism, between tourism and other resorts such as beach. So please take note that we always try to ask whether if there is a relationship between activity to resource, if there would also be another relationship going vice versa from a resource to an activity. So once you're done, we can now stop here and proceed to the next. No, I mean, I would stop and Ma'am Eva would proceed to the next set of interactions.
We will also look at interactions between pressures to activities, pressures to resources, and pressures to pressures, as well as activities to pressures. But for our Sesame demo, we will only focus on direct interactions involving pressures to activities and pressures to resources. We are also interested to learn if our participants can identify the type of direct interaction that exists between these variables. So for instance, in pressures to activities, we can ask if population growth as a pressure drives or influences the amount of fishing activities happening in the study site. Janina is adding arrows from pressures to activities to represent a relationship between the variables. She is also assigning polarities to each interaction. So we would also elicit responses from our participants for direct interactions between pressures and resources. So for example, do destructive and illegal fishing practices affect the conditions or amount of fish, corals, and seagrass? So responses from participants are recorded, and the interactions between these variables are also assigned negative polarities. So after the interactions between or among variables are identified and assigned polarities, we are also interested on decisions that participants could make which could address problematic trends in resources. So looking at our map, we will select resources which have worrisome trends as perceived by our participants. So for example, let us refer to the trends in fish. So there is a decreasing trend in the abundance of fish, and the expected future trend is also the same. So keeping this issue in mind, we shall ask our participants what other activities and pressures could also be directly affected by their recommendations and decisions. So we can see that there is already a decision icon. So Yaya can further explain how we will place the decisions.
Okay, so there's a decision category, but as you can see, there is only one icon because all of these has to come from the participants. So they have to be the ones to identify what are the possible interventions or solutions to the problem that is existing in their community. Okay, like Ma'am Eva, what solution did the participants suggest?
Two of the most popular responses we received from our previous FGDs were establishing marine protected areas or MPA.
Okay, so that is one. And then another, let's add one more.
Is implementing closed season for certain fishery.
So let's put closed season.
So as we did earlier, we will also identify interactions between the decisions directly affecting activities and pressures. And then we will also assign polarities for each interaction that has been identified. So establishing MPAs and having close season for certain fishery will affect the amount or magnitude of fishing activities in the locality where these decisions are to be implemented. So of course, when you impose these decisions, then there will be lessened activities for this in fishing. And likewise, on the other hand, these decisions may also intensify illegal fishing practices and raise prices of fish. So that would be negative polarities. So we will repeat the same steps for all problematic trends as what Janina is already doing. So soliciting decisions from our FGD participants is the last stage of our FGD. So we would recap and validate their decisions, these decisions, and this will be the final step of our mapping or diagramming session.
Okay, so we show the entirety of this map to the participants. So if we are hiding certain icons, we have to show them everything. Okay, so we do this so that they see how interconnected all these components are, and so that they would also realize that they are part of the system, that all of these things in the system are interacting with one another. So you may be wondering, what happens next, or what do we do after getting this rich picture or diagram through Sesame? Okay, so let me share my screen again. So from the rich picture diagram that we created on Sesame, this gets translated into causal loop diagrams, such as this one, which shows the activities, resources, trends, and the interactions among these components. Afterwards, we also include the decisions or the possible interventions mentioned by the participants, as well as the intervention points for these. So when it comes to the strengths and limitations of using Sesame, for one, it is visually engaging. It facilitates identification of interactions. It's very easy to see that on the screen. It does not require any specific user skills. Anyone can study and actually become fluent in using this. It is also very easy to navigate and is available for laptops and for whether it's PC or Mac. It's available on seacrest.net, and that it is free for everyone to use. Some of its weaknesses would, one, include that you have to have at least 3 people to operate or to use the Sesame during FGDs, because one has to be the facilitator, the other has to be the recorder or assistant facilitator, and lastly, somebody has to operate the app, so the Sesame driver or operator. It can also be draining on your gadget battery, and it would require you to have equipment on the field, such as tablets or computers and projectors. And lastly, the diagrams that are created on Sesame cannot be transferred or converted into other file formats. So you just have to take screenshots of this. And then let me turn you over to Ma'am Maris.
Okay, so we hope that with this demonstration overview of Sesame, you have learned something new and that you will be able to use the app for your research or other projects. Thank you very much and good day, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Isang malaking heart naman dyan for our colleagues from Palawan State University. We will give them time later on to explain. Ang daming heart, na? actually, when we were using this, we were very impressed. And we know also that our Palawan State University colleagues work really hard in a very long project, several year-long project with World Bank and the University of Queensland. So sana magamit, no? That's why they are here, no? Sana magamit natin because this is really a Filipino knowledge product in collaboration with foreign partners. But again, when we were using this, we were so impressed. It's so easy to use, and at the same time, it captures the complexities that we really wanted to see. If you're doing your thesis or dissertation, and even your project and your extension work, and it will be there. Banggitin ko lang before we go to Doc Jen, we have more than 200 participants who are here right now, and we are so happy also because we have more than 30 universities and LGUs. We have several LGUs, and we are all well represented from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and we have some colleagues from abroad who are also here. No, mamaya babanggitin po yan ni Dr. Emily. So nakakatawa because we have also a lot from LGU. So we are a very mixed bunch here, academe, LGU, and practitioner. Okay, now that we saw the rich pictures, no? Now we look into causal loop diagramming. Let us call on our very own Dr. Jennifer Marie S. Amparo. Go ahead, Doc Jenny.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ron. All right, so siguro po, before we start, could I ask everyone to please raise their arms and wave your hands? Ayan. Okay po, kasi medyo po tayo. Kailangan magising-gising din po tayo at mukhang bago tayo magkaroon ng Zoom fatigue. Alright, I'm the last alright, I'm the last speaker. Alright, maraming salamat po. Okay, and also, siguro po, kindly chat po in our chat box, okay, one word to describe your initial learning. Ano yung mga keywords na lumalabas from the first two presenters po? Na kumaga tumatak sa inyo. Sige po, paki-chat na lang po dito while I share my screen. Sir Ron, ano pong mga lumalabas na?
Yes, we saw system, interconnectedness, dynamics, interaction, relationships. Napaka-active naman ng ating mga innovative. SES, connections, relationships, and interconnection. And Doc Jen, as we said, ang ganda ng mix ng participants natin. We have LGU and academics who are here. Sige po.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Ron. Ayan. So maganda po, no, at least the insights, the keywords that you've been mentioning really hits the point in terms of why we did this webinar. All right, so my presentation is really more about application of the use of Bensim and also other case studies on which we have used these integrative frameworks that Prof. Emmy have already mentioned. Okay, so ito po yung kanina, di ba, na nakita niyo po sa presentation po nila Doc Maris. Ito po yung causal loop diagram that they were able to prepare a map analysis based on their Sesame activity. Ayan, di ba? Wala po kayo nahalata sa shape pa rin siya ng fish, diba? Diba? Ganda. So, ayan. So, at least, actually, sa CLB, you could be as creative as you can. It's really a break from a monotonous text that you see from all the transcripts, no? So, lalo-lalo na, shout out sa mga nagpi-PhD dyan, 4, 5, 6 years nyo bubunuin, no? At ganun na rin po. Sabi nga nila, quality education takes time. So, okay lang po yun. Pat on the back. Alright, at dun sa ating mga BS undergrad students and faculty members as well. Okay, so let me, alright. So my presentation is divided in 3. So basically, a quick rundown of the parts, and then the process, paano po ba ginagawa itong causal loop diagram, and I'll introduce to you the Bensim. And pangatlo, very important po siguro, how do we effectively use the CLDs, yung causal loop diagrams? So I've chat before, yung link doon po sa Bensim. I think Prof. Ron also posted it in our Facebook page. Prof. Ron, if you could post it again in our chat box, much appreciated. Thank you. So that's our storyline. Tatlo lang po na key takeaway. All right. So let us start with the first story. So this is the traditional way of thinking, right? So may problema tayo. Single ako. Ang action ko, I'll go to dating apps. And then I'll find the one and the end. Sabi nga ni Sir Dino, we started this workshop by finding the one. All right, tapos na, the end. That's the usual way of thinking. That's the usual way of planning, right? So we have our problem, we have our, okay, what's your solution? How do we do this? What, when, how? How much do you need for that? And then what's the outcome, output, mga ganun po, no? But sabi nga ni JP, kung sa mga Gen Z at Millennials, kilala po nila si JT, what comes around comes all the way back around. For example, in every action that you initiate to solve a particular problem, essentially, binabago mo yung sistema. So sometimes the original problem is not already the problem. There's a new problem that you've created or there's a new context, no, na kumbaga, bakit hindi pa nag-work yung project ko? Because you've already changed the system. You've already changed the behavior of the system. Halimbawa, no, when we talk about intervening on, for example, you've introduced a MPA, no, in that certain community. So you've already solved a particular problem. So hindi yung initial solution mo might not work anymore. So that's why we need to continuously be conscious on the feedback. Right? Okay. At doon po siya kakaalam po sino si JP, pakichat na lang po. Sir Ron, pakichat kung tama. Alright. So, alright. Ano po ba yung CLD? It's a causal loop diagram. It's basically a diagram or an illustration that aids in visualizing the interrelationship among different variables. Instead na sabihin ko na an increased level of fishing negatively affects the marine ecosystem, and a poor marine ecosystem health is detrimental to the level of fishing. Instead na sabihin ko po yun, I illustrated it. Sabi nga nila, a photo or a picture paints 1,000 words, right? So yan po yung kwento niyang causal loop diagram na yan. So CLD first appeared in the 1963 article of Magoro Maruyama, Second Cybernetics. So ang ano niya po talaga is systems dynamics, yun yung anchor ng CLD. No? So bakit tayo gumagamit ng CLD again? As I mentioned, no, it's a visual aid, no, to illustrate complexity and dynamics. Instead na magsalita ako ng 1 hour or more than 1 hour here, this is the photo. This is how complex the system is. Right? Second, it also, kung nakikita niyo dun sa Sesame, di ba, sabi nila, our respondents, our FGD participants might look at the impact of fishing to seagrass as this. Pero base sa literature, hindi. So, ano muna? Okay, we gather what they know, no? Kasi we want here to understand their mental models ng ating community members. So, and then we try to, discuss, we try to negotiate, we try to build consensus. No? So definitely conflicts will be there. So the role of the facilitator is very critical when we do a CLD. Okay po? What is highlighted in your CLD really matters. No? So sa mga sociologists dyan, mga political scientists, the power dynamics in creating a CLD is really also critical, right? But we'll not delve into that here. So it forces us to think of feedbacks, yung sinabi ko nga kanina. No? Kasi hindi lang tayo, okay, ang increase ng level of fishing will be detrimental to ecosystem health. That's it. Pero how does this affect our fishers? Okay, bakit ang mga fishers hindi umaalis agad sa fishery? Kahit na mababa, or halimbawa, hindi na maganda yung water quality, mababa na yung fish nila, bakit hindi pa rin sila umaalis sa fishery? Okay, kasi we fail to see the feedback. Right? Or there are other components in the system that might affect their decision to continue fishing. Okay? All right. So, okay, sabi nga po dito, no, why UCLD? We are experiencing tinatawag nating wicked problems. These are complex, complicated problems that the traditional problem solution, okay, what's the problem? Problem needs analysis tayo. Solutions ano tayo ngayon? Stakeholder analysis tayo. Doesn't work anymore. No? Na hindi na lang ganun kasimple. No? So we need to constantly monitor, evaluate our interventions. Okay? So it requires innovative mode of problem solving. So system thinking provides that particular framework, right? It's a consciously organized thinking using systems idea. I will not delve with this. Prof. Emmy has insightfully discussed it earlier. But there are two streams of systems thinking. Ito po yung hard systems dynamics and ito yung soft system methodology. The thing that we are discussing here right now, particularly the one that I'm sharing, is really anchored on the soft system methodology nila Czech land. No? All right. So other systems thinkers or dynamicists are Jay Forrester, Dennis and Donella Meadows, as Ma'am Emmy had mentioned, and Peter Senge in his the fifth discipline. Okay, for those who are working in business management, kilala nila yun. Right? Okay. So ano ba yung parts ng CLB? So there are 4 parts. Okay. Sige po. There are variables, there are links, there are signs on the links. Ito po yung relationship no, ng links ng dalawang variables and yung sign of the loop. Link is basically variable 1 to variable 2. But when you have an arrow going back from variable 2 to variable 1, then you have a loop. Alright? Sige po. Pakitype po dyan sa ating chat box, ano po ang variables dito sa yung picture on the right. Sige po. Okay. Pakitype lang po, ano po kaya ang ano dyan? Ano yung variable na sinasabi natin? Ito po. Okay, pakitype lang po sa chat box. Ano po dyan yung variable? Sige, sabihin ko po yung isa. Level of fishing. That's the, ayun. Thank you, Ma'am Chris. Ayan. Alright. Thank you, Ma'am Janelle. Ayan, marine, those are your variables. Variables, thank you very much. Alright, what are your links? Links is your, ano pong bahagi dyan yung links? That's your arrow. Alright? So yan po yung arrow. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Mama Lely. Ayan, the blue arrows. Thank you, Sir Ronel. Okay. Ano yung signs on the link? Ano po yung nakikita nyong sign dyan? Sabi nga, this is the sign, no? Finding the one, all right, positive, negative. All right, so here you have negative, negative. All right, thank you po. What's the sign of the loop? Ano po ang sign ng loop ngayon? Nasa po dyan? Letter lang po siya. Okay, RC, thank you, Sir John. All right. So tama po kayo. RC, basically R is reinforcing. Mamaya baggitin ko po. Kaya ako ginawang RC kasi reinforcing consolidated. Later po sa exercise natin. Alright, thank you, Ma'am Eva. Alright. Okay. So, ayan, tama po kayo, no, yung mga binanggit po ninyo. Now, sa variables po, when we select variables, as much as possible, we try to, a neutral term. Okay? And something which we could count. Like for example, the level of fishing, the number of fisher folks, extent of seagrass, yung mga ganun, para you could the kilometers or the square meters, whatever. No? Okay, bakit po neutral? Kasi po mamaya, may polarity na po tayo. Okay? Pag nilagay po nating negative polarity, tapos illegal fishing, parang mag-iisip ako na, okay, negative yung illegal fishing. Paano kung positive yung negative ang tourist, MPA. Alright. Number of MPAs in coastal communities in the Philippines. Number of MPAs. So, ibig sabihin, negative yung parang ganon. So, medyo neutral term, yun po yung suggestion ko. No? Alright. Sa links naman po, ayan, kailan po nagiging negative? Ito po, yung polarity and positive. Pag same po yung change. For example, an increase in level of fishing eventually decreases the marine ecosystem health. Tama po? So, kaya po siya negative kasi magkaiba yung direction. At pag bumaba ang pag tumaas ang bumaba ang marine ecosystem mo, okay, anong mangyayari sa level of fishing? Okay, initially, tataas po yung fishing kasi kumbaga, ano yung sinasabi sa fishery? They will fish farther, they will fish longer, kasi nga, umuunti eh. Naku, kailangan ko mag-exert ng effort. But eventually, it will become positive. Mamaya papakita po natin yung delayed or weak signal. Alright? So, ganun po. No? Okay, clear po? Pag same change direction from one variable to another, that's a positive polarity. Negative polarity pag different. Okay, same with the loop. Pag reinforcing, same change direction. Okay, katulad po nito. Negative, negative equals reinforcing. Pag ito negative, ito positive, balancing po siya. Alright? It's a balancing. We don't use positive or negative dito sa loop. Kasi nga po, yun, nagkakaroon ng, for example, negative feedback loop, halimbawa, creation of MPAs, maganda naman yung effect niya. Sometimes kasi pag narinig mo na yung negative, pangit. Alright? So, it's a matter of discourse actually. So, whatever is being used in your institution, that's okay. Alright? Now, I'd like to quickly introduce you to system archetypes. Ano po yung system archetypes? So, it's actually a causal loop diagram, no? which are common and usually recurring patterns of behavior in an organization. In any organization or in any situations, usually you observe this. For example, limits to success. Okay? So, halimbawa, yung effort po natin, okay, essentially, it's reinforcing kasi as you push more effort, yung performance mo nag-increase. Kaya lang po, may limiting action. Either hindi ka na natutulog, o kaya wala na rin namang pandagdag na sa'yo ang professor emeritus ka na, ano pang gusto mong kumbaga yung level mo, taas-taas mo na. So, yun yung limiting action mo. So whatever, any additional effort, meron ka ng limiting action. Yun yung limits to success. Okay? So, ganun din po, success to the successful, ibig sabihin for those who have access to more resources, generally they have more success as opposed to sectors who don't have access. Kasi nga, syempre, di ba? For example, this particular sector, ang galing naman ito, napaka-productive nila. Sige, bigyan pa natin sila ng mga additional incentive. We provide them with So, talagang nare-reinforce. Paano yung mga sector na talagang hindi in the first place, yung access nila, that's really problematic. Okay? So, hindi ko na po yan. Those are some of the examples and these are the links. No? Okay, next. Ayun na. Punta na po tayo sa, those are the parts. Okay po? Second story, process. Paano po ba natin ginagawa ang CLD? Tayo po ba iuupo sa computer, arrow here, variable there, reinforcing ganun ba yun? So, let's see. So, how do we gather information on creating CLD? Kanina po nabanggit nila Dr. Maris, yung they did some FGD, they have this app that help in terms of facilitating the focus group discussion. Okay po? So itong CLD na to, hindi po sila ma'am itong mga input na to ay galing mismo sa respondents or dun sa ating FGD participants. Okay? Sila ma'am lang yung nag-ayos. Alright? Okay. So another way of doing it is the collaborative conceptual modeling by Barry Newell and Katrina Krause from the Australian National University. So ang ginagawa naman nila dito, CLDs are really used for promoting shared understanding among us. Okay? So for example, ang ginagawa nila dito, okay, these are sa FGD nila, FGD din, ito yung mga key questions nila. Okay? And then I think one of the dito is they really ask the participants to create a causal loop model of a particular problem. Tapos, individual, I will give you time. The next step, will pair. Meron pair blending, causal loop diagramming. We compare each other's causal loop kasi same problem yung tinitignan natin. Definitely, magkakaiba yan. Meron ding similarities. Now, we discuss together how we put this together to create a unified causal loop diagram. Kasi that would promote understanding, that would promote, kasi halimbawa po, ako, no? Ang background ko is on human ecology. Baka hindi ko nakikita yung nakikita rin ng economist, for example, or nakikita ng isang zoologist tulad ni Dr. Mike, no? So, yon. So, magandang discussion yan until we come up with a common causal loop diagram for the group. Alright? Okay. Okay po. Caleb says hi.
Sige po. So you can keep your questions. No? If you have questions, feel free to ask them on our chat and Prof. Yuyen is taking note of all of them. Okay? Doc Jen?
Yes, that's the work from home. Hello. So anyway, so yan po yung gagawin natin po. So ganun po yung ginagawa. No? So when we use the collaborative conceptual modeling. Next po is, all right, this is what I did in my PhD. So I did focus group discussion. Dito po sa mga fishers in Bulacan, hindi po ako nagpa-causal loop diagram because that's I felt that it's very complicated pa po. And what worked with the fishers, I also asked them, is yung more visual. No? So, tingnan nyo po, no? Nag-picture po sila ng mga changes, what are the factors affecting it, mga ganyan. And then they report it. I also did KI and survey. And from there, nag-thematic analysis po ako dun sa mga qualitative inputs po nila. Yung survey, I also use that in another CLB that I use. No? Kung ano po yung prominent, yun po yung medyo either take yung line or dun po kinuha yung mga variables as well. And then I prepared the initial CLB and then went back to the field for validation and a lot of iteration from the stakeholders and then finalization and presentation of CLB. Okay, so that's how I did it. All right. Okay, so how do we use Benzene? So ito na po, no? So I'll change my screen into Benzene. So quick lang po. Hopefully po may naka-ano po sa inyo. Ito po ha. May naka-open po ba ng Benzene? Thumbs up lang po dyan. I think yung mga students namin po sa... Oops. Sorry. This one. Okay. Ito po. Alright. Kita niyo na po, Sir Ron?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
ma'am.
Thank you very much po. Okay. So, pakita ko lang po yung interface, no? So, basically, ito po yung Benzene. Okay? So, what you're gonna do is, the first thing I do usually is go at the bottom. Kita niyo po yung bottom. So usually I change the text into Arial. Then the font size 16. Okay. Tapos di ko na binabago yung arrow. Depende po sa inyo later on. Okay. So gagawin po natin ito na lang pong dalawa. Okay, para simple. Okay. So kikita niyo po ito. Ito lang po yung kailangan po natin. Alright, so I'll just introduce you to something that you'll use for CLB. Okay. So click the variable, ito po yan, variable, arrow, yan po yung kailangan nyo. Delete, pwede, tsaka yung lock sketch. So ito lang po yung gagawin. So click the variable, click it on your blank space dyan. Okay, so halimbawa po, ano pong gusto natin? Halimbawa po ay coral health. Okay, okay, ay, meron na daw pong kapareho. Coral health. 2. Nilagyan ko lang po ng 2 kasi may kapareho siya. Okay? Alright. Tapos, sabihin natin fishing intensity. Okay, click natin. Fishing intensity. Okay? Ay, meron na rin po pala. Sorry. Yeah. Okay po. Now, okay po tayo sa variable. Thumbs up po dyan. Okay po. Alright, now, we go to the arrow. Okay. Ang arrow po, click nyo lang po yung arrow, click doon sa start, tapos click to the finish. Ibig sabihin kung saan yung gustong variable papunta. Okay, halimbawa po ito. Coral health, oops, ayusin ko po mamaya. And then to the fishing intensity, click. Ayan na po, no? Babalik po ko sa variable para maayos ko itong coral health. Alright. Ito po. Okay. And then, I'll go back to the arrow. Pwede pong ayusin. Ganyan. Okay. Itong bilog po dito, yan yung drag nyo. Okay. Drag it. Drag. Okay. And then, may another arrow, fishing intensity to coral health. Okay. And then, drag nyo po ito. Okay po. Thumbs up po pag nakasunod. Okay. Now, ano po yung impact, dun tayo sa polarity. Okay. Pag nag-increase ang coral, pag nag-increase ang fishing intensity, what happens to coral health? So, sabihin natin, bababa siya, no, yung coral health. Okay? Okay. So, negative po, tama? As your coral health decreases, what happens to your fishing intensity? Okay. Initially, sabi nga po natin, during the FGD nila, Ma'am Dr. Maris, nag-i-increase. Tama po ba? Nag-i-increase? Or as your coral health decreases, tumataas yung fishing intensity. Okay? Initially, kasi nga, you fish farther, you increase your effort, pero eventually, dito po dadagdag yung pangalawang link. Yung, may nagtanong po, paano po ba na ano yung delay? Diba, pwede siyang positive, pwedeng negative, depending on the time scale. Okay? So, ayan. Pwede po, okay, so, klaro po, yung paglagay ng polarity, right-click doon po sa arrowhead, then makikita niyo po ito. Okay, negative, positive. Yung iba pong ginagamit S or O, pero dito po tayo sa polarity. Pwede nyo pong lagay sa arrowhead, pwede sa handle. Kasi minsan pag marami na po, hindi mo na makita yung ano, lalagay ko sa handle. Diba? Lalagay ko po sa handle, ayun na po siya. Wala na siya dun sa arrowhead. Okay po? Now, right-click po ulit, sorry, to the arrow. Okay. Ano po yung line na yan dito sa tourism? No? Okay. Ito po yan yung delay mark. Halimbawa po, example ko po dito yung tourism and pollution level. So, initially, wala pang effect sa pollution level yung tourism. But as you go along the implementation, pag-increase ng number of tourists, yung pollution level mo nagiging evident, right? So, may delay mark siya. Okay? So, click nyo lang po yung delay mark nandun. Then, okay, ayan. For example, ito po, may delay mark. Okay? Now, for example, sasabihin natin, pero yung fishing intensity, hindi naman ganun ka-strong na driver sa coral health. Halimbawa lang, sinabi ng community members. So, medyo weak yung signal. Okay, hindi nila masyado nakikita iyon. Alright, so right-click again. Usually what we use is a dash line. Apo, click nyo lang po itong line style. Okay, ayan. So, yan. Pwedeng weak signal yan. Okay, hindi diretso, hindi agad. Okay, so that's how you could show. Pwede nyo pong, for example, doon sa survey nyo talagang napakaano nung level ng fishing, tulad nung nakita nila Ma'am Maris, Dr. Maris. So what you could do is, siguro pwede nyong i-increase yung thickness. Okay, katulad dito, pinili ko po yun sa gitna. Okay, so yan. So ibig sabihin, pag nakita ko yan sa dito, halimbawa dito po, no, level of fishing, siguro fishing intensity, the fish population. Halimbawa po sa survey ninyo or sa FGD niyo, talagang ito yung recurring theme. Nakapalan ko po siya. Okay? Kasi ibig sabihin, doon sa doon sa discussion po ninyo, ito yung critical leverage, yung feedback link. And when we talk about leverage points, dito ako titingin. Okay? Ibig sabihin, ano ba yung mas impactful? Ano ba yung medyo delayed? Kasi signal din sa atin po yan. No? Bakit may delay? Bakit weak? Right? Okay? And then, pagkukopyahin nyo na po, alright, punta po kayo sa lock sketch. Okay? Lock sketch. Then, just drag po doon sa entire nakakopy nyo. Ito po, no? Ang suggestion po namin, 1 CLD at a time. So, i-highlight ko po ito. Okay? Yan. Then, copy. Ano ba yun? Alt-C ba yun? Alright. And then, i-type natin sa, okay, I'll stop share. I'll go to a PowerPoint. Wait lang po. Share screen. Yeah, there's my PowerPoint. Okay, so ito po yung PowerPoint nila Dr. Maris. Okay, i-insert lang po ako ng slide. And then paste. Ayan na po siya. Okay? Kung ano yung kinapi ko doon sa benzene, ilalagay ko lang po sa presentation ko, even sa Word. Okay? May question po? So, yun po yung benzene. So, very simple. Kaya siya benzene po. Alright. 3 minutes. Yes, ako, patapos na po, Sir Ron. Okay? Then, okay. So, yan na po, no? Alright. Last part is, tapos na po tayo sa process. Punta na po tayo sa product, which is the last part of the presentation. Okay? So, ito po is an example of systems-based human ecology framework developed by Dybel and Newell. So, sa kanila po, we have the state, no? Yung estado ng cultural paradigm. These are the worldviews, values. The state of community is basically your institution, policies, what is happening in the community. State of human health and well-being, and state of ecosystem. So para sa kanila po, napaka-critical ng worldview natin, ng values. Kaya everything runs through that. no? So, na-affect niya yung state of yung ecosystem affects this, which affects the state of community, which eventually affects the state of ecosystem. Okay, so ganyan po siya. So the advantages of using this is one, it's transposable across sites and cases. If you have that framework, similar to any framework, you could use that to compare, no, the different case sites that you have. And then, it could be a framework for complexity, no? Para hindi po tayo mag-analysis paralysis, at least meron po tayo mga key state variables. Cross-sector interactions, no? Nakikita po natin doon. Okay, and caveat po, it's not for statistical inferences, but more understanding and open discussion across it. So these are some examples of how we use it. This is from my study in mariculture. Ito po yung example niya, okay, ng causal loop diagram. Napaka-intricate po. No? Pinakita ko lang po ito just to show the complexity. I put boxes to ano po itong external factors, economic factors, environmental factors, okay? All right. But essentially in my in the 3 case studies I did, nakita ko po may tatlong traps, multidimensional well-being trap. Ibig sabihin po hindi na-highlight, no, yung social well-being ng mga fishers, pollution trap kasi nga po weak yung signal going. And resource depletion trap. Definitely, there's a problem in terms of the state of fisheries sa atin, especially in the open waters. Okay? This is driven, my argument is driven by the strength of productionist paradigm. Kasi po lahat tayo, ang mentality natin, we need to produce more para kumita yung mga fishers, para gumanda yung buhay nila, para yun po yung diskurso, right? In any intervention that we have for small-scale fishers. Ngayon, my argument is we go beyond the productionist paradigm and go more to a biosensitive, that we really need to protect the environment for us to sustain fishing. If you want to sustain fishing, you want to sustain it as a livelihood. Okay po? Another is, this is in the Dominican Republic. So, ganun din po yung metodo nila, no? This is in La Caleta Marine Park. So, ginamit din po nila ito kay Dr. Leibel. What they did using the thematic analysis, naglagay po sila ng mga specific concepts. And from there, they developed the causal loop diagram. Okay? And they develop particular problem space. Saan ba yung pwedeng intervention? And based dun sa analysis nila and discussion with dito po, dive center functioning yung ifo-focus ng marine park managers. Okay? So, very step-by-step po yung article na to. So, that's how they created with the consultation with the marine park stakeholders. Okay. And then, ito nga yung sinabi. So, how could MPAs, bakit closing fishing season, no, or MPAs? Kasi nga po, it reduces fishing intensity, right? Which is the key driver in the system kung saan nag-FGD sila ma. Alright? So, ito yung binabago natin, fishing intensity. Okay? So, siguro may tatlo lang pong 3 takeaways. CLDs or causal loop diagrams help us in systems thinking, understanding complexity. Second po, there are a number of tools. Hindi lang po ito. There's a lot of tools that we could name of. These are some of the 2 simple ones. And what you do with CLDs after your research matters. So you communicate your research to policymakers, to other researchers, and to other stakeholders in the community. And I'd like to close my talk with this quote from Daniela Meadows. Your paradigm is so intrinsic to your mental process that you're hardly aware of its existence until you try to communicate with someone with a different paradigm. With that, maraming salamat po at padayon.
Thank you so much, Doc Jenny. Wow, that's a very interesting presentation. No, we saw systems thinking, and then we had Sesame, and then now we had Benzim, no, and causal loop diagramming. We learned a lot from Dr. Jen. And to give his reaction, we are honored to have a mentor here of many Filipino scholars and even foreign scholars and practitioners who are working on social ecological research. We have the honor to have Dean Michael Pido of Palawan State University Graduate School. Doc Mike, please.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. Ron, nakashare na ba yung screen ko?
Yes po, Doc Mike. We can see it pa.
Okay, sandali lang ha. Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to share my reaction to the presentation. And to be quite honest, I feel nervous because this is like a deja vu. My student number is 7714659, so that gives you an idea how young I was when I started at UPLB, and I graduated in 1981. So that means that's some 40 years ago. So I have been tasked to provide a reaction to 3 presentations by Prof. Mendoza, by my colleagues at PSU, Prof. Maris, Prof. Eva, and Janina, and lastly with Professor Jen Amparo. So at the last minute, I decided, Ron, to make PowerPoint slides to share my thoughts, because I wouldn't be able to articulate verbally. So I'd like to start that we live in a world that is wicked. Wicked. This term "wicked problem" was originally coined by Wes Charchman in 1967 to refer to the problems that are difficult or impossible to solve because of incomplete, contradictory, and changing requirements that are difficult to recognize. So these have been articulated by our 3 speakers. In fact, the term that they are using now is this VUCA. We live in a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that means many of the problems that we are trying to solve have these characteristics of there is no definitive formulation for wicked problem, and every wicked problem can be considered as a symptom of another problem. So most of the environment and natural resource management issues or problems are categorized as wicked. So here in the examples, we look at the capture fisheries or the culture fisheries, and I have actually been involved in several preparation of comprehensive industry fisheries development plan for the Philippines. And when we reviewed the problems about Philippine fisheries from the time of President Marcos in 1965 to the present, I mean, the problems are practically the same. Like the ecological problem center on 3 issues: overfishing, pollution, habitat destruction. And in fact, with all the systems analysis, the problems have gone worse. So you can see here that the environment problems are wicked problems. And just to add examples, like to go quickly, that many of the environmental problems are difficult to track. The reason I put here the markup is that I saw one participant from Marinduque, and I mean, so that issue about markup mining, I mean, there have been debates. Was the collapse of the dam an engineering problem, or was it because of the design with nature? Was it force majeure? Even the Ormoc tragedy, I mean, there have been debates about logging, about land use changes, precipitation, and their impacts on fisheries. So I just would like to highlight here that this is the difficulty in looking at the environment and people interaction, that they are difficult to difficult to solve and to track down. In fact, lately we have what we this guy Levin et al. They are using the word super wicked problems, like the issue of global climate change. That up to the moment, I mean, there are no solutions to global climate change. In fact, countries have been quarreling it, that the developing countries are arguing that the global climate change is a conspiracy of the rich countries because they are already developed. And even in the US, I mean, former President Trump and current President Biden, and even the former Vice President Gore, they have different opinion about global climate change. So to me, in terms of the presentation, I mean, we can simplify the essence of system thinking as they have articulated better than me, about the if and then hypothesis. It is about the cause and effect relationship, and it is about the relationship of parts to the whole. And there have been many models or tools developed along this line, such as particularly in Europe. I mean, the most popular is the PSR, or the pressure state response, and the variation of it, the DPSR, the driver's pressure state response. Now, to my mind, it's easiest to look at the systems thinking in terms of the type of relationship. I mean, you can. I've been looking at the presentation of Professor Jen, and it's like the fishing effort and the health of the ecosystem. I mean, you can look at it as A is influenced by B, B is influenced by A, or there is an if we use the causal loop diagram, there is a two-way relationship between A and B. But I think the most difficult to look at is the spurious correlation at times between A and B. And here you can be you can be amazed that many people are engaged in this debate about spurious relationship, and you will be even amazed that many people believe in astrology rather than hard science. So to my mind, systems thinking should be considered as an analytical tool. It should be taken into context as an aid to logical thinking. And I think what makes systems thinking fascinating these days is the use of computer. It facilitates the analysis. It, as provided by the three presenters, it improves the visualization. It provides greater predictive power, such as the Sesame by PSU and the Benzene by Prof. Jen. And the common to them is the use of the computer-based CLDs, this computer loop diagram. Now, I think because of the predictive value of the modeling in systems thinking, I mean, the modeling somehow either reduce or eliminate the need for actual experimentation. Like, for example, if we really want to predict the impact of biodiversity, I mean, why don't we kill all the whales or all the sharks? And of course, that's you can only do that by experimentation. However, by modeling these days, we can now predict the impact of that action. I think at the end of the day, we should be wary of paralysis by analysis. To my mind, systems thinking is an analytical tool. However, we should not be paralyzed by analysis. At the same time, we should also take a look at the limitations of the systems thinking. Why? Let me give you as an example. Okay, there is an example that Taliban take over in Afghanistan. If you look now at the systems analysis of the CIA, that has the best intelligence network in the world, they predicted that the Afghan government will hold out the Taliban offensive for at least 1 year. However, as history says, I mean, within a week, the capital, Kabul, already surrendered in 7 days. So maybe just to wrap up, that at the end of the day, it's always easy to look at it's good to look at systems analysis as the tool. But I think that the value of systems analysis, particularly in terms of game theory, can be exemplified here. I mean, Deep Blue is the IBM computer program about chess, and here is Garry Kasparov, the chess champion, who is considered by many as the GOAT. So in the first game in 1996, Kasparov beat Deep Blue, but in the second game, in the second set of games in 1997, the world champion Kasparov was beaten by the computer. So the point I'm trying to articulate here is that the power of computer has enhanced systems analysis that that now the computerization of systems analysis and the better visualization has aided us in terms of decision making, particularly in issues that are difficult or that are complicated in NRM, particularly fisheries and coastal resource management. So in closing, I'd like to maybe close that in terms of systems thinking, we should look at the systems thinking in terms of the role of science. And we are all aware that the science has two roles: the positive role to describe what is happening, and the normative role, what ought to be done. Now, to me, systems thinking are helping us in terms of both roles. But I think systems thinking has more role in terms of the positive role, whereas the systems thinking help us visualize and quantify the relationship and interconnectedness of various variables. Now, at the end of the day, normative is what ought to be done. And here, the human organizations are not always logical, but somehow the results and or the outputs of systems thinking help in terms of coming up with a more sensible and logical solution. So in the presentations, we have here about the capture fisheries, about fisheries, involving also watershed management. So with that, I'd like to, of course, thanks the three presenters. And Ron, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share my thinking. I'm actually, as I mentioned earlier, I feel nervous because I didn't know how to actually react. And I do hope that my thinkings would somehow contributed to the thinking and to the philosophical underpinnings of systems thinking, particularly in terms of natural environment and natural resource management, and in this particular context, in terms of fisheries and coastal and environmental management program. So with that, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mike. We were so impressed, no, with our team, with our colleagues from Palawan State University. Of course, it's like a deja vu to all of them. Prof. Maris, Prof. Eva, Prof. Gia, and Doc Mike are all our alumni, no? So it's like a deja vu for all of them, and it's an honor for us. And siguro mabilis lang before I go to Prof. Yuyen. Really, I think when you look at the way these all social ecological systems was established, it's about linking the what is to what is ought to be. And I think all of those systems, dynamics and systems theory were developed upon that realization. And daming reflection, I hope we all reflected from the presentation of all our speakers. And now let's go to the Q&A. Prof. Yuyen, our assistant professor from SDS Che, will be the one who will facilitate. And Prof. Yuyen, please take the Zoom, no?
Ayun. So maraming salamat, Sir Ron, and welcome to our open forum. We still have like 9 minutes to cover your questions. But while Dr. Pido was giving his very insightful comments, actually we have some questions in the chat box, and particularly from Sir Julian, and Ma'am Jen has already answered that question. But yeah, we still encourage more of your questions or insights in our chat box. For the meantime, we have a question for, while waiting for your questions, we have a question for Ma'am Emmy. Professor Mendoza, in your presentation, ma'am, you mentioned about the implementation or the application of systems thinking in socio-ecological system, no, or issues. Our question would be, is it possible, ma'am, to apply systems thinking in pure social research, like for example, in anthropological, sociological kind of research, or is it only limited to interdisciplinary kind of work? Thank you po.
Yes, thank you, Ma'am Yuyen. Yeah, so the quick answer to that question is also a quick yes. Opo, ma'am, kasi systems thinking is not just for analysis and researching socio-ecological systems. Of course, that's the unit of analysis for human ecology. But my disciplinal training, for example, is in sociology. And the focus of sociology at the most basic are really social systems. So, ganun pa rin, system pa rin. The idea behind systems thinking as a tool, no, and as a way of thinking, as a perspective, no, is to approach any problem space as a system, whether this is a policy system, an organization, a social organization. And in fact, the growth of systems thinking actually did not come much from the natural sciences, no? But rather in management, no? In really finding ways and means to better better leadership, better organizational setups, better organizational functioning. So, as I've said, the quick answer there is yes, no? But we should also be warned, tama yung sabi ni Dr. Pido, no, na this is just one way of looking at things, no? But I should say that it is a very powerful way of looking at things, and therefore it becomes a powerful tool also to use in making sense of the complexities of our lives.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ma'am Emmy, for that very insightful answers. That will be very helpful. We also have a question for Dr. Pontillas. In your presentation, ma'am, we noticed that the development of the information using the Sesame tool was it really built on the inputs coming from our FGD participants. So it's really qualitative. The question would be, is it possible to use the Sesame application for quantitative research as well?
Maris,
yes, okay.
I'd like to answer the query. So our response to this is no, we cannot. The Sesame app is applicable for qualitative data collection and qualitative modeling. So it is not. It is a tool that we use in conjunction with focus group discussions or other participatory data collection techniques, where our aim is to engage stakeholders to collectively consider the causes of complex problems. So our output from the session using Sesame is a rich picture. No? So, however, if we are interested to further develop a quantitative model, we can further use the rich picture to create systems diagrams that where you can identify the variables which need data, and then further develop quantitative models using other modeling softwares like Vensim and Stella, among others. So that's our response. So it's a qualitative data collection tool or for qualitative modeling.
Yes. And if I may add, we can once we have the rich picture, we can validate it using our quantitative data. That's when the quantitative data come in. Like for example, they might say that there is a negative relationship between this variable and that variable. But if you have data that says otherwise, then that's when you update and say that based on the data that we have, this relationship seems not to hold or seems weak, something like that.
Yes, thank you for that, ma'am. So it's really like the result coming from the Sesame could inform actually models that are quantitative in nature. And then, as you mentioned, ma'am, diba, na when you have this when you already have this relationship, you can also use quantitative data to validate if the created relationship is acceptable or hindi nga po. So thank you for that, ma'am. And then, okay, so we're still waiting for some questions in the chat box, but yeah, we have one more question here for your team, Ma'am Maris, and also for Ma'am Jen. So we saw a lot of feedback loops, no, in your presentation. So this is for both Bensem and Sesame. The relationships between variables are, you know, it could be reinforcing or balancing. The question would be, can we box the relationship of these socio-ecological variables into these two only? What about if, you know, with the dynamic relationships of the variables, this could be hybrid? So how can we show that in the CLD? Is that possible, po?
I think Ma'am would, for the CLD, Ma'am could better answer that. But for the Sesame, basically we ask when we try to determine relationships, cause and effect, the question is always in the long term. So for the long term, whether it's positive or negative, although as already explained also, for the CLD, there can be delay. So sometimes you cannot, you might say that it is increasing initially, but then because there's a delay, the effect can be seen later. That's why it's very hard to depict relationships when you're just looking about 1 year. That's our usual question is usually 5 years, within the last 5 years or 10 years. And in the CLD, we can also see that the delay can also actually be reflected.
Okay, so in that context po, ma'am, our variable would be the time, no?
Yes.
Yes, okay po. So Ma'am Jen is having actually internet connection as of the moment and looking at the time. So maybe we will have to give our one last question. So that would be maybe for Ma'am Puntillas as well as for Ma'am Emmy for DSDS. Of course, we recognize that we have a lot of participants, no, students, educators from the LGU and all. So I'm sure na, you know, you got very interested on these tools that we can possibly use when we apply systems thinking. So if ever, you know, we would like to know more about it. So where can we get assistance to be taught about systems thinking, how to use Bensem Sesame application? Does PSU or DSDS provide training for, you know, people who would like to know more about these tools?
Okay, as Ron said, this is a knowledge tool, and the more that we use it, the better. So actually, we at PSU are advocating, and we provide free trainings we can arrange, and like this webinars. As you can see, a 30-minute or a 1-hour orientation would be enough, and so that you would be able to navigate. So anyone who's interested, if we can contact us so that we can organize a webinar or a presentation, something like this. So we would accommodate such a request.
Yeah.
I would also
Yes.
like to add that the tools are also available again on the ccres.net. So even the scripts are there, how you're supposed to do the FGDs are also there. And so, but we can again provide additional assistance for that.
Yeah, nice to know that, ma'am. Okay, Ma'am Emmy for DSDS.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I was inclined to refer the question to Sir Dino, my chair,
Oh,
no?
yeah.
But
Yes.
given our tri-function, we always really try to respond also to requests, no, for trainings, no, and technical assistance, even with regards to this matter. But it is best to see the context also, where they're going to use this, because there are a lot actually of scholars, no, who are into systems thinking, and depende ma'am if it's going to be utilized for circular economy, no? So we can syndicate something to that effect. Okay.
So thank you for that, ma'am. So for everyone who's interested to know more about this, so please feel free to communicate our speakers. So thank you so much po sa lahat, and that ends our open forum. Back to you, Sir Ron.
Thank you so much, Ma'am Yuyen. And we had a very productive webinar again, around 200 speakers, 200 participants, no? Or more than 200 participants. And of course, it has to end. All good things has to come to an end. And to formally end this event, where we learned a lot, let us have our colleague, our full professor and also UP scientist, Dr. Emilia S. Visco, to formally close our program. Dr. Emily.
Hello, hi. Hello po, good evening. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yes, we are more than 200 kanina. We still have 140 in our Zoom. So anyway, magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. It's already 6 o'clock. We're very, very good. We're on time at it's time for us to close. I would just like to thank those who attended. Napakarami po, but please bear with us. I just need to mention them. But before our participants, we would like again to thank our resource persons, Professor Mendoza for the systems thinking, our partners from the Palawan State University, mga ma'am at mga sir. Marami pong salamat. Sana po this is a start of a very, very beautiful relationship with you. Sana po we can have more coordination with your university. Aside from trainings, you can also have other programs na sana po in the future ay magkakaroon po tayo ng partnership. Hindi ko na po i-mention. Of course, Ma'am Jen, nawala na po ang internet ni Ma'am Jenny, kaya nawala na po siguro siya. I just would like to recognize the presence of the universities who attended also. Napakarami po. I will just mention some of them. Of course, the Palawan State University, our partner. College of Public Affairs, College of Human Ecology, ang ating kolehiyo, both in UPLB. Batangas Eastern College, tama po, Marinduque State College, Maine, San Pedro College of Business Administration, Far Eastern University, Manila, Arellano University, University of the Philippines, Manila, Palawan State University, sinabi ko po kanina, main campus, Eastern Samar State University, University of Santo Tomas, Negros State University, Norsu, Western Philippines University, Puerto Princesa, Western Philippines University Main Campus, University of the Philippines, University of Eastern Philippines, Central Bicol State University of Agriculture, Civica, Batangas State University na Sugbo, Cavite State University Main Campus, aming kapitbahay, College of Development Communication sa UPLB din, UP Professional School of Agriculture and Environment, Surigao State College of Technology, College of Arts and Sciences po ng UPLB, School of Environmental Science of UPLB, University of Reading po sa UK, Palawan State University Batarasa, Provincial Government of Palawan, ito po yung mga ating mga LGU na partners, posible nating partners, Philippine National Police, yung ating SDS alumni, LGU Bayambang, ayan, taga dyan po ang tatay ko, baka itong ating alumni din ang taga LGU Bayambang, Marinduque State College, Quezon Extension, Sarawita School, Bangkok. Kung meron po kaming na-miss, we will apologize and sana po, hindi po ito ang ating huling pagkikita. We will have more, probably Sir Ron will discuss later kung o kaya ipopost ulit sa ating Facebook kung ano pa yung mga susunod nating gagawin. Muli, nagpapasalamat po ang Department of Social Development Services, College of Human Ecology sa inyong pagdalo at padayon po sa ating lahat. Magandang gabi po.
Thank you so much po, Doc V. Of course, napakaganda ng reception po ng ating, again, no? As we said, napakaganda ng reception sa ating webinar. At of course, before we end, kailangan ng picture.
Yes.
So, paki-on lang po ang
mga camera.
Pa-on lang po and we will take several pictures. There are 3, no? So we will take pa-on lang po ng inyong pa-on po ng inyong mga camera and we will take a picture. Sige po. So, I will count now in 3, no? So, ngiti lang po muna dahil marami po ito. So, ngiti lang po.
Saan ka dyan?
Sige po. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's for the first one. Second, ano po natin? Second screen. 1, 2, 3. Third screen. 1, 2, 3. Okay po, doon po sa lahat ng gustong kumuha ng certificate, nag-send po kami sa inyo ng feedback form doon po sa ating chat. So please, please ano po the certificate, please assign the certificate. And of course, to our resource speakers, we will send po the certificate of appreciation for you, no? For coming here. Maraming salamat po and see you again in our next webinar. Maraming salamat.
Maraming pong salamat. Ingat po tayo.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you,
Maraming
Ma'am
salamat
Maris,
po.
Ma'am Jana, Ma'am
Welcome.
Eva, Sir Mike.
Yes.
Ron, salamat Ma'am Jen, salamat Sir Dean.
Thank you.
Salamat po. Marami. Sir Jillian, thank you po. Ma'am Emmy, lahat po. Sir Doc Dino, Doc B. Bye-bye po sa lahat.
Jen, thank you.
Congrats po. Thanks, Sir Ron.
Angie, sa Marinduque.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations sa DSDS.
Thank you po sa PSD also.
Hi, Teacher Roy. How are you? Thank
Hello
you
po.
for that.
Maraming salamat po from Bangkok, Thailand po. Salamat. Thank you po.
Salamat po sa lahat. Bye-bye po and God bless. Thank you po. We'll end the